Hello, everyone. It is Tuesday, November 16th, and we have a special live a little bit earlier today. So I'm pretty excited about our guest. I have so many reasons to be excited about, but first, let me just, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Carmen Milagro. I'm the host of Confidence Strategies, and the whole idea for the show is to be a resource for you, for information and education and just ideas on how to maybe level up whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're in music, whether you're an artist, whether you are an entrepreneur or an entrepreneurist. We're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. But really, the idea is that once a month, I have a discussion with a pretty special guest, and today's guest is no exception. I wanted to sort of give you a little bit of background, but first, I also want to thank our sponsor. Our sponsor is Music City, and we've been doing this now for over a year and a half. And they came on as our sponsor very early on in the game. So thank you again, Music City, for continuing to support us in this endeavor as we evolve and we have all these new plans for the upcoming year. It really is my pleasure and an honor to welcome to the show today. Our guest is Craig Abaya. Now, he's not only a colleague and a former boss of mine, he's a mentor and a dear friend. But he's also a multi-dimensional artist. Craig is also a native of San Francisco. He's a filmmaker and a photographer. He's worked with people like Paul McCartney, Elton John, Tom Jones, and Pearl Jam, Neil Young, and Sarah McLachlan. Now, he also sits on the New Media Council of the Producers Guild of America. He's a singer himself, a multi-instrumentalist, and a recipient of 10 Billboard Magazine Awards in songwriting. He's also a music producer, an engineer, plus a Grammys voting member. Craig was also honored as the featured artist at Macworld Expo in San Francisco and is director emeritus of San Francisco State University Extended Learning. He also, because he's got all this spare time, he also serves periodically as a consultant to Apple on the topics of education and media production. And he's also the person that I borrowed that term from. He's the creator of the term entrepreneurist. And we'll talk a little bit about how that came to be, because that is one of my fondest memories working with Craig. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. And hi, Craig.
Hi, Carm.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule. I know you always got at least 12 different things going on at once. And but we're really excited that you're here tonight. I can't wait to jump into our discussion.
I appreciate your having me. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, thank you. I'm so happy that you're able to do this. Craig, I use that term all the time after you and I were having our discussion. I don't even know how many years ago, but you came up with the term. We were talking about who we are as artists and business people and educators. I was working for you at the time. How did you come up with, or why did you come up with the term entrepreneurs?
Well, it's not like I sat down, with my slide rule and thought, okay, what's the perfect word to describe this? But it's more like, there are people who do art for the sake of art and love it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then there are also people that they're extremely artistic, but have no direction. And so it's not necessarily a term that describes somebody who needs to make money from their art, because really it depends on your goal.
Right.
And I think really what it is to me, the measure of success is, well, first you got to start with whatever your goal is. You can't be successful at something that you really didn't want to achieve to begin with, or at least, you wouldn't consider that be self-success. But for those who wanted a little bit more structure and a direction for their art, I thought, well, that's the entrepreneur artist. And so I don't know, it just, what's the term with two words? I can't remember the term right now.
Like
And
mashing it up,
yeah, remember the band The Tubes?
right?
They had an album called The Completion Backwards Principle.
Okay.
Okay, and so that's sort of like, I guess, sums up how I came up with the term, is just thinking about, well, you have to have a path, you have to consider what your goal is, whether it's to become famous or whether it's just to be able to contribute to the world,
Right.
or just to satisfy this crazy itch that you have to create. You have to create.
Exactly.
We were all created to create, one way or another.
Exactly.
So,
I couldn't agree with you more. I think for me, it's also really been all these years of being in business, loving it as much as I do, but also being an artist, and loving the business of the art, the business of music. Well, I don't love it all the time, but most of the time.
right. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. It's particularly because we were running programs, departments at the university that had to do with the arts,
Yes.
and or entertainment, and technology. The problem is, you can be, in your white tower, right? You can be in your ivory tower, ruminating, which is unfortunately my view of higher education. Sometimes it's like people really are good at ruminating, but they're
Yes.
not necessarily great at accomplishing. And if they are, they're not really good at imparting those things. And I got a little bit of trouble at the university because we were also feeling that our job is to get jobs for our students, our graduates, which you don't always see. And here we were doing that. And we have a lot of people who are now working, whether it's for Apple or for Google or for Facebook or for the San Francisco Giants or for the Warriors, or and the list goes on. you
Yes.
know um,
Yeah.
and and it's I felt that it was our job, and that also is a form of an entrepreneur artist. Is just because you are not an entrepreneur doesn't mean you're not an entrepreneur artist. It just means that you are seeking a livelihood, like in a position, with a company or something. But your approach to it, you're being able to market yourself, in a
Exactly.
job interview.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about job interviews and things like that. But yeah, and
No, one of the greatest things that I'm most proud of is all the work that we did, you and I together. I was there for a few years,
yep,
and it was that ability to help other people on their path and coach them, and mentor them, work with them, you know, suss out their talents, encourage them. That I still do that.
of course,
At that time, it was like you and I talked about. We felt that was our job. It was our part of our obligation, and no one was forcing it on us. That's just who we are. So I love that time working with you.
yeah. I
Everyone
mean, yeah,
else as well.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And it's you know, I think we brought it with us, and we have taken it with us as well.
Exactly. Exactly. Craig, I do want to get onto this topic of confidence. In your roles, and I do say, many roles as an educator, as, all the things that you do. Um, Obviously, you started early on in your life being able to express yourself in a variety of ways through music and photography and filming. But who was your model? Like, who was your coach, your mentor? Who was that person that fostered that and that inspired that, or it wasn't just all from within?
I don't believe it was all from within, but I really can't think of a mentor. I It's I was one of the interviews I did. For those of you who've been around for a while, you remember that Apple.com used to have new stories on their website. Now it's all marketing, which is great because you can't say they're not successful.
Right.
Um, but they used to do stories, and I was fortunate enough that about 3 or 4 occasions I was the subject of stories on their website, and one of them, I was being interviewed, and they said, "Well, how did you wind up doing this? You're a director at a university. You are directing films. You're making music." And I had to say, and this jumps into one of the 3 different thoughts I have about confidence,
Yeah.
is I said to them, I never really fit in spaces that existed or that were apparent to me. So I basically just started making my own spaces.
Yep.
And then, hey, guys, want to join me in what I'm doing? And maybe that was because of a lack of confidence in some ways. I didn't feel confident in their world, but I felt very, very confident in my own world. And I think that's everybody.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. I mean, we're all confident about the things in which we are comfortable,
Right.
right? And then we are other times might feel as if we were fish out of water, or Aztecs in Manhattan, or something like that. So that brings up, the confidence to accept change.
Right.
To give you a little bit, to give everybody a little bit of my background, I entered college maybe a bit too young and a bit too immature, and I was ready to quit. But at one point, and I think it was like 1981, dating myself, I was saying, here I am, and everything that I see doesn't really fit me. And I learned that you could create and propose a new major. So I said, well, yeah, that's the thing. Okay, this is 1981, but there's going to be a time when everything's going to be on the computer. Everything's going to be digital. I won't name names, but one of my professors, who's still a professor at the university, said, and I quote, "Digital will never succeed." And this is old enough that, I mean, long ago enough that he actually said CDs will never overtake vinyl.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so anyway, now we know what happened. Of course, now vinyl has overtaken CDs, but it's still, that's more of a fun thing. The motivation for vinyl. My daughter, my 16-year-old daughter, collects vinyl. She loves vinyl, but it's more of a collector's thing
Yeah.
and a fun thing. What does she listen to on a daily basis? Well, she has a Spotify account.
Right.
You know,
Of course.
so that was the beginning, and I hope I'm not rattling because my earbud just fell out. That was not, I guess that was just a start. I mean, really, there was nothing to learn in digital. The head of the cinema department, the film department, simply said to me, "Okay, Craig, I'll take your word for it. And in the meantime, would you like to teach some graduate courses?" And I said, "Well, I'm an undergrad." And he goes, "Well, I can pay you in graduate units." I said, "Okay." And I go, "When do you want me to start?" He goes, "At lunch." And that was how my first teaching experience. Again, this is in the 80s.
Right.
But by 1991, there was a book about that thick. It was about 200 pages, and it was called QuickTime.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and I bought 2 copies, and I don't know if he's listening right now, but I sent one copy to LA because my friend Phil Gallegos
Yes.
was working in the motion picture industry. Yeah, I don't know if you're watching, Phil, but yeah, I'm bringing you in on this story. I basically shipped it to him in LA, and with a little note that said, "We need to learn this. This is the future."
Right.
Digital video. But meanwhile, again, this is 91. A year later, I find myself at what was called the Dunphy Hotel in San Mateo at a videographers conference, expo, and one room was filled with all the latest equipment, all the latest hardware.
Right.
And I'm in this room sitting in the front row, as I tend to, partly with the last name that starts with an A and a B and an A, but partly because I always like to sit in the front row. I sat there and listened to the keynote speaker proceed to humiliate people who were excited about getting this little image on a box. He said they're excited over this little image on the box, which basically meant the QuickTime 1.0 with a 160 by 120 size pixel screen, and I was really excited about it. You could fit video on there's a thing called a floppy disk they used to have. Well, you could fit it on a floppy disk. It was really terrible quality, but it really was what it represented.
Right.
So, I didn't have the confidence. I'd made in film. I'd made films since I was about 9, and because I started to hate film because it cost too much. It took too long. The
Right.
process was laborious.
Right.
And So fast forward to 1994. Okay, Time Magazine and Newsweek said, this thing called the web, no, it's not going to, people are talking about the web, it's not going to succeed. And in fact, the three major networks were all, I think that was a lack of confidence, really, because they were not accepting change. And again, that's what I'm talking about here. They
That's
were,
one of the definitions.
yeah, we're rooted in this. This is our bread and butter,
Right.
you know, and not thinking that not unlike the railroad people who didn't like the Industrial Revolution perished.
Right.
Fortunately, they were able to maneuver without a lot of pain and struggling, and so the very next year, 1995, Time Magazine had the opposite story on their front cover. I still have my copy. Again, I bought 2 copies.
Yeah.
My aunt, who actually had, funny enough, the same name as my mother, Elizabeth Lorenzana, she's a professor in broadcasting at the University of the Philippines, and she was visiting, and I gave one to her, and I said, someday we're going to be watching TV, but it's not going to be on TV.
Right.
You need to read this. And again, it was more like, okay, she'd probably been a professor for many, many years, and
Sure.
why change now, right? Um, and okay, I understand that. How often does like a new style of art come out, and at first we feel like, oh, what's that? And then, oh yeah, I get it. This band Nirvana is making all of those guys in spandex and nice hair look kind of silly now, right? It's threatening. Change is threatening, but the thing is, change is inevitable.
Right.
Finally, almost finally, 1996, I started working for Silicon Valley, teaching people multimedia and HTML, JavaScript,
Right.
cascading style sheets. That's where it all started, right? Website. If you go to archive.org and you type in, and you can type in their Wayback Machine, and just type in like Macy's.com, and then it shows you all these dates, and you click on the first date, and you will fall over laughing. This is what a website was like back in the mid 90s.
Sure. Sure.
Because like the web really happened in 1994 with Netscape.
Right.
Finally, you started AMP3, the Association of Music Professionals,
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
way back, and you were, and you had me speak,
Yeah.
and somebody asked, so what do you foresee in the future? And I said, don't believe Steve Jobs. He's denying that we're going to be watching video on their devices,
Right.
their little handheld devices. This is 2 years before the iPhone. Um, and the thing is, it's like, it's just embrace. It's not just a question of having the confidence to accept change and progress, because there's a lot of progress denial in our today's society.
Sure.
And without getting political, there is a lot on both the left and on the right. Um, and the thing is, we need to embrace change and figure out how we can fix it ahead of time
Right.
for survival.
Yeah. And have the confidence to do that. And there's all those different, layers. We're talking about one area right now, but just in everything. You also talk about accepting the truth.
Yep.
What, having confidence is, accepting the truth. The truth about what?
Well, there's a lot of well, for example, there's a lot of science denial going on. Again, I'm not being political because I see it on both the left and the right,
Right.
and it's really hard. But I'm going to read you. You know this book, 2005. I bought this book, and it said these utility companies have, and how do we pay for it? And it's talking about the huge economic significance of water,
Right.
and that water is a service. Water is something that we don't question. We don't even question how much we pay on our water bill. We just pay it. It's a service. It's something ongoing. And basically, this book was saying that this model of water as a service is the future. And the name of the book is The Future of Music.
Right.
And I just mentioned earlier Spotify. It's a service now.
Yeah.
And it was very frightening for a lot of people to read that in 2005.
Sure.
And so, what were you asking me?
No, just accepting the truth. And I think that ties into what we were talking about before. It just all sort of comes together, accepting change, accepting the truth of change, right? Having
Absolutely.
confidence to dive in. And
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is, it's like the truth is technology is going to happen. Advancements in technology are going to happen. We all are upset with social media. We're all upset with how it's doing tremendous amount of damage, especially to the young people, because of their feelings of self-worth. Because when every time somebody posts a picture of them with their friends, not only is it making us feel really badly because, like, oh, I'm not out with my friends, but it's also a substitute. It's not truth. It's a person that's using social media as a substitute for truth, because there's so many things that are substitute for truth right now. Revenge right now is a substitute for justice,
right.
right? Remember 1931, Frankenstein, people running with their torches. Everybody wants revenge. They don't really want justice. And it's because they're not really facing truth. Everything. Pride is a substitute for truth. There are so many things that the internet is doing to our society, and I'm seeing a lot of damage in it. And the thing is, if I may quote Kevin Kelly, for those of you who don't know Kevin Kelly, a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant writer, on the order of Aldous Huxley and George Orwell, but he's a local guy and one of the founders of Wired magazine. He said that our ability to invent new things outpaces the rate at which we can civilize them. And he wrote this back in 2016. His last book was called The Inevitable, in fact. But he also wrote Out of Time, which inspired the movies, the Matrix movies.
Oh, right.
And he's been a consultant to Steven Spielberg since Close Encounters, I believe. Because what kind of consultant? About what the future is going to be like. That's the thing. And he's right. David Pogue, the great technology writer, said that if there's any living prophet right now, it's Kevin Kelly. He has predicted, or he has not even predicted, he's projected, he's foreseen all of these things, and he's basically shared them with all of us. And it's true. Technology takes a lot of time to become civilized. So right now, we're in the dark ages, as far as I'm concerned, with social media. And a lot of truth gets lost. But it's not just social media. It's always been that way. The emperor has always never had new clothes.
Right.
Right? Bob Dylan was trying to pull the stakes down on the circus tent on a lot of people who were claiming him to be a leader of their movement. You watch like Ed Bradley interview. He did 60 Minutes Ed Bradley interview. Ed Bradley asked, "So what was this about you being there? Everybody claiming you were the leader of this movement. You were this," and he said, "Well, I guess they just weren't listening to the songs, were they?" And the thing is, he was not only claiming that they as emperor didn't have new clothes, he was claiming he himself does not have new clothes, that he is naked. But people are looking for a substitute, for truth. So anyway.
Craig, this is I have another question for you. I mean, you mentioned your daughter, and just in general, the everything that's happening with young people and the effects on their confidence level. But your daughter seems to be thriving. She's also super creative and super artistic. I've been, at one of your sets, on set, I got to witness, and she's come so far. What's the thing that you impart to her, that maybe other parents could also, sort of tag along, to just sort of garner some, you're in this business, you're in entertainment, you're in the digital technology. And I just would love to learn that the process or the conversations that you have with your daughter.
Well, she is incredibly wise for her age. She's incredibly talented, and incredibly, even academically, very advanced. But I don't want to say it's not a slippery slope, because for every parent, it's slippery slope, and there are many dangers. She's aware of a lot of the dangers in social media, and it's not that she hasn't had her challenges with social media, but part of it is, as parents, I think we are only one component. We're one factor in their development. First, there's the DNA, right? She can pick up an instrument and play it first time. Well, her mom and I are both musicians, right? And she's a great actress. Well, her mom's a great actress, right? But then there's what, the nurture nature, right? Then there's the nurture part. It's sometimes the nurture part is in combat with the nature part. There's all kinds of things that go on, and I don't want to say in any way that I could be a model parent. Absolutely not. But I think the one thing is, listen to them. You're not their friend first. You're their parent. I'm very blessed that my wife and I have always we're best friends, and we have been together. We met in a teen club. We didn't date the entire time. There was a time we dated for a couple of years, and then there was a long period where we dated others and were out of contact even. But the thing is, that kind of reinforced the fact that we had a lot more in common than not. And so a father a father gives one thing, a mother gives another. If those of you who believe in yin and yang, I firmly do. That there's some things where I will say, this is your thing, to my wife. I say, I think you will do better with her on this particular topic, and I will do better on others. I'm the one who takes her to her acting jobs most of the time, and her auditions and all of those things, because I understand the business, and although my schedule's crazy, there's a strange flexibility because of having a laptop, right?
Exactly.
Some of the stuff I do, I can do from the desert if I have to, provided there's enough battery power. But so yeah, I mean, listen. I think just listen and talk and be honest, and there's another form of confidence there, and it's the confidence to acknowledge your own insecurities. I'm pretty insecure. I'm a very insecure person. Always have been. But but I think I'm just so overwhelmed with excitement over things that I forget that I'm insecure.
I know that is definitely not a word that I would ever use to describe you. And it does surprise me to hear you say that, but it's being aware of yourself. To me, that's part of being confident. I do consider myself an introvert. I like to be in the background, observing and watching. Like if I'm entering into a networking event. I like sort of to scope it all out first before I, say anything or approach anyone. I do consider myself an introvert, and yet here I am. It doesn't really look like I am, but I
Well,
am.
yeah. Well, see, there's basically, I guess, two main definitions for introvert and extrovert. One is the popular one, right,
Right.
which is what you're describing, and the other one is the clinical one.
Yeah.
The
Exactly.
clinical description of an extrovert is somebody who recharges in the presence of other people, and an introvert is a person who recharges when they have peace and quiet on their own.
Yes.
Okay, and
Exactly.
um, I am definitely an extrovert when it comes to that. I definitely come alive when I'm in the presence of a lot of people. I love being around people, but at the same time, maybe classic. I have never been diagnosed with ADHD, but classic ADHD. If you put me out in nature,
Uh-huh.
I don't want to talk. I just want to sit there. I mean, I've written songs like on a cliff over the bay and over the ocean and things like that. But that's probably linked to that part of me that seeks nature. And funny enough, if I'm not here to promote any music or film, but I'm just hopefully in the next couple of weeks finishing a new music video. Music videos take me about a year to make nowadays because I'm just so busy. But and this is a simple one, but it's about communing with nature to a certain degree and communing with God. And the thing is, I wrote the song when I was a kid, and it became really popular overseas, unbeknownst to me at one point. So things have led me to let's make this music video. But I think uh, I think that's part of my confidence is that I really want to come to terms with how I do feel. I'm confident enough to say that I actually am insecure. Maybe I'm not as insecure about certain things. You give up certain things, like that's not a big deal anymore. When you're a
Sure.
kid, you're a lot more insecure because you're
Okay.
still developing, you're trying to figure out who you are, what your path is.
Mhm.
But we're living in a culture in which everybody is a victim, and I'm not a victim. And so if there's any area where I have confidence, it's there.
Right.
It's you can throw anything out at me. You can call me anything you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's like don't we have too much of that going on? Um,
Yes, unfortunately.
to quote Fantastic Negrito, it's like I don't want to live in a country in a world where like people go say, "What did you say?" Where everybody's walking around worried about what they're saying. You know, um, and I have the confidence to not care. It's like I'm much more interested. I mean, I'd hope we all would be much more interested in everybody getting along than anything else. So,
That would be ideal, wouldn't it?
yeah.
Now, you also mentioned something to me before when we were talking about doing this interview because I was really excited and I couldn't believe that we were actually doing this. So I was like, but you came up with a term, another term that I'm really curious about, and I wanted to wait to talk about it here. But I've been dying to ask you what you mean by when you say subversive confidence. I've been dying to ask you, but I was like, no, I'm going to wait.
Well, it's kind of like what I was saying about, there's two ways to define extrovert, an extrovert and an introvert. I think there's more than one way to define confidence. The classic description of confidence is you trust yourself,
Right.
right? And the thing is, I think first and foremost, everybody has their own insecurities. And sometimes the bigger the personality, the more they're trying to compensate for
Yes.
their insecurities.
Sometimes, yes. Agreed.
I actually wrote a list of things that I want that are subversive, if I may read them to you.
Of course.
Um,
I'm so curious, Craig.
well, um, hopefully everybody won't shut me down. The more confident I am, the less inclined I am to be offended by others.
Love
The more
that.
confident I am, the less inclined I am to become jealous of others.
Hmm.
The more confident I am, the more I am able to see the beauty in others. Can I bless those who curse me? Can I love those who hurt me? Can I truly forgive? And would I rather punish behavior or change hearts? To
Oh
me,
my
that's
God.
subversive.
I, Craig, first of all, it sounds like lyrics to a song. I'm just saying. My mind went
Maybe.
right there.
Okay.
But that's incredible. And
Thank you.
obviously, there's a reason why we have been friends for so long because as you were saying, as you were reading what you wrote, it really resonates with me. I say it in a less polite way than you do, but I love this. And I love the fact that we're reinforcing it in a different way so that someone who might be struggling with something along, in this realm is going to be, just watching live now or will watch it later on. And if this is why I love doing these interviews. And again, thank you for being a part of this because this is something that for me this started during the pandemic, where we're all in isolation, or the beginning of the pandemic, I should say. And we were all in isolation. And as much as I like my alone time, yes, I did feel completely disconnected. And don't get me wrong, I like being on my own. I'm super creative. I got to read books. I got to work on projects. I didn't mind being in my own little bubble within the bubble within the bubble that I live in. But that's why I started this, is more than anyone, how technology is just not my forte. And yet here I figured out how to work with this platform. Someone recommended StreamYard to me, a little plug there. And I started doing this as a way to connect with people, but also hoping that these conversations would would bring forth exactly like the moment that we just had. You took this time to think about this and write this down. Thank you, because it is a resource. It's words are so powerful, especially in this day and age. And thank you for sharing your thoughts because you are someone that I value and trust.
Well,
And
likewise, and thank you too. I mean, you mentioned a moment ago, if you don't mind interrupting.
no,
You said that you say things maybe not as nicely as I. What did you say? You know,
not
and
as funny.
well, the thing is, I mean, I have my moments where, in order to get through a situation, I will say to myself or out loud, "Well, screw them,"
Right.
which is a substitute for confidence. It's like I need to get through this. I don't want whatever they're doing or saying to affect me. So, in my saying "screw them," it's not really criticizing them as more or less saying I don't care. I don't
Exactly.
care whatever they're doing. And the thing is, Carm, I think, I mean, every one of us has a certain level of insecurity in different areas.
Of
I
course.
see you as being very confident. Sometimes confidence is a push through, but
Yes.
I've never heard you speak badly of anybody.
Oh,
And
thank
we've been around.
you.
I know what you've been through. You know what I've been through. We know we've been through together.
Yes.
I've never heard you speak badly of anybody. Um,
Thank you.
and that's, I think, a form of confidence because it's a next step. And if I may quote the great T-Bone Burnett, the producer, um, it's whatever we can do to contribute to the health of the world.
Right.
And so maybe being a little less, I don't want to say a little less critical, doesn't mean you're blind.
No.
It just means, is it worth it? Is it worth it
Exactly.
to be critical? Are we going to be builders? We're living in an era where everybody's breaking things down now,
I know.
and I want to be a builder, and I hope and pray that I can accomplish that because I'm human. I'll screw up. We all have tempers, right? So no way are, it's like Bob Dylan. It's like he doesn't even know how he wrote his songs. So he goes, but somehow there was some kind of inspiration coming to him.
No, Craig, it's one of those things where I often say in other conversations with other guests, I make the choice to live my life the way that I want to live it. To me, that is a form of confidence because we have the ability to make the choice. It doesn't mean that I don't know what's going on. It doesn't mean that I'm not aware of criticism, like people, just being me for the sake of being mean, because I don't know, maybe they just have
A lack of confidence.
right. Right. Very good. Very
Thank you.
good, Chris. So it's not that I'm not aware. I just choose to not give it, like you said, it's just not that important to me. You go ahead and think whatever you want of me, of the work that I do. Think whatever you want. You're right. I just don't have to buy into it. I don't have to acknowledge it, but it doesn't mean that I'm not aware of it. And I think that, I don't have my head in the sand. So I think that when I'm working with young people, those are topics that we talk about because I think it's really important to do that. And for me, when I'm working with young people and they are artists 99.9% of the time, it's that ability to dive into your art and express yourself and whatever it is. If you're making pottery or you're making film or you're writing songs or writing a book, it's that ability to put all of that external noise, just either set it aside, ignore it, or just focus so much on your art. That's the beauty. That's where confidence, in my opinion, comes from. And when you're an artist, you have to have a thick skin if you're creating art to share it with others,
Absolutely.
right? You and I
Absolutely.
both know that.
Yeah.
What do you think if you could go back in time? I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but this just came to me. If you could go and speak to 9-year-old Craig, what would you say to 9-year-old Craig to mentor him?
Wow. Well, at 9 years old, I didn't yet play guitar. I played piano, and I didn't yet play drums. I was just actually piano and singing a little. I did get my first camera, a little point and shoot, and I did work with friends on my first film over at McLaren Park in San Francisco. And there was no, it was interesting because, I grew up on Bernal Heights, which is now a very artistic community, but it wasn't when I was growing up there. It was just basically very blue collar.
Sure.
And so I was kind of like, the oddity, of this person with, loud drums coming from the house and, running around with a little movie camera. But, I don't know if I have an answer for that, to be quite honest.
That's okay. We can have another interview.
Yeah, here's what I would say to 9-year-old Craig. Here's what I'd say to 10-year-old Craig. And I think part of it is, I guess what I would say is, keep doing what you're doing. Everything will be all right, but everything isn't going to come to you and happen in the way that you expect.
Right. That's brilliant. I think that's a wonderful round out to our conversation tonight, Craig. Thank you so much
Thank you, Minga.
for taking this time. Is there a way that people can get a hold of you? Is there a project that you would like them to know about before we sign off?
I mean, I've got like a couple of songs out right now. Oh, actually, one's a music video.
Yes.
And it's called Regret. You can find it on YouTube, Craig Abaya, Regret. And that one is in the pool in the Grammys right now for Best Music Video. And then the other one is a song called "Will I Walk on Water," and that one's a single, a song. But I really don't. I'm not here to promote anything except, again, try to be one little blip in the move to try to improve things in our culture, in our world, in our country, you know. And but I appreciate the opportunity to promote something. If I were out selling something, I would definitely let you know. But like, those are out. I mean, I've got a music video called "Lazy Day Away" that's coming out in a couple of, I don't know, 3 weeks or sometime in December. Um, but you could find me on Craig Abaya on Spotify, on Apple Music, and all the usual places.
Great.
And but thank you. But nothing in particular.
I,
I
I
just
just
enjoyed chatting with you.
likewise, Craig. Thank you. I mean, this is probably a long time coming. We have these conversations. We just haven't done it like this. So I
We used to
try.
meet under the dome,
Yeah,
under the
exactly.
dome at Westfield Center.
Exactly. I miss those days.
Yes.
But thank you everyone for watching as well. Craig, I hope you'll go ahead and respond on the page Confidence Strategies with Carmen Milagro, because I do know that we've had some comments while we were chatting, but they didn't identify, so I don't know who it is.
Okay.
You have to give access to StreamYard so that they'll show the name. So, but it's hey Carmen and Craig, great show, great to see you both. Very interesting commentary. That sounds like Richard. I could be wrong.
It could be.
And then someone also chimed in when we were talking about extroverts and introverts and said, "You're describing an extroverted introvert." It's many of us. Yes, it is. Yes, it does. Thank you all of you that stayed with us. Please feel free to share and rewatch and just comment and like the YouTube version of this. I'll also be uploading it within the next week or so onto Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So it will be around. What we do now, it's evergreen. We appreciate you taking the time, Craig. Thank you for all your wisdom and your insight and all these wonderful nuggets of information and your thoughts that I do think about all this when we finish our chat. So I'm going to rewatch this later to remind myself.
Thank you. And thank you for whoever was watching. Appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Good night, Craig. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. God bless you.
Thank you, Craig. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. This was really special to have some time with my friend Craig Abaya. And, he always just leaves me with such an incredible amount of new information and new ideas. And I just love this. So I do this for myself too. But it is November, so next month will be the last Confidence Strategies with Carmen Milagro for 2021. I haven't quite decided yet what that last broadcast is going to look like, so stay tuned. I'll keep you posted. And again, please like and comment and share. We're on YouTube, Confidence Strategies with Carmen Milagro, on Facebook, and my personal page as well. And I appreciate you all. Thanks. Have a great night. Bye-bye.